Thank you all so much for being here. To start with you, Ted, as the director, Retreat was a short film 12 years ago?
13.
13 years ago. Wow, how time flies. And it's not quite the same story as this film, but it seemed like the origin of what Retreat is.
Kinda. All I really took from the short film was the title, Retreat. Yeah, there are similarities in terms of a community. They're both films about community, and Sophie was in the short film and came with me, but really we restarted from scratch on the feature.
What can you tell me about the relationship that you and Sophie had from that film that carried over into this film?
Well, that was the first time I actually worked with Sophie on the short, and we've been friends ever since, and I knew I had to write another role for her, and I went to Sophie from day one, said to her, look, I want to play this role, and for years I've been writing for her. She's been helping me out, a bit of a muse for me, and the results speak for itself, I think.
Sophie, did you know that you're Ted's muse?
Yes, she often tells me. But I think the whole concept of the film has been an amazing thing to be a part of, but to know that this second part it almost makes the first part feel like a spin-off. So yeah, it's like a prequel to what you're going to see from now on.
Yeah. So then how does Anne get brought into the process? You have this relationship and then Anne gets brought in. How do you become a unit?
Yeah, so back in 2018 I wanted to open up the roles for international actors because as deaf people and the story that we were telling, there's overlap all over the world. As deaf people we share a familiar experience, and I just thought it'd be exciting to mix up the languages, and auditioned for the role, gave an amazing audition, and immediately once she came on board, like Sophie, we were adapting the role specifically for her, for Eva.
Yeah. So Anne, what did you think when this project first came to you and you first got to meet Ted?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's a beautiful experience working with these people, and for me it was the first international project. Yeah, it's just, I can't wait to see it with everyone on cinema, and what people think, and yeah, it's an amazing story, so people should see that.
Yeah. I mean, Ted, this film has been described, I think, by you as the world's first deaf thriller. And thriller feels like a very important word to let people know that it's not like anything anybody has seen before. So why a thriller?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't start with the intent of writing a thriller. I say it's more of a psychological drama that evolves into a thriller. So it's, I don't really think in terms of conventions when I'm writing. I mean, it's up to everyone else to call it a thriller, and whether it's the first death thriller, that's not for me to say. But
Okay.
I think not many people like us get to make films, and this is why people are seeing it as quite unique and special.
Yeah. Well, and both of your characters are phenomenal, but Sophie, your character is just formidable and scary and intriguing and cult leader, I guess is a way to say it. Just how did you meet this woman, and how did you and Ted get to build her together? Did you put part of yourself in this character?
There's a lot of research. I love research anyway, but researching not just cults, but also how communities behave, especially under oppression. The psychology of manipulation and what love can be. So how we understand love can be really toxic, and we don't realise it until it's too late. And yeah, I think that fascination just grew and grew the more conversations that we had. But we are ultimately a part of the bigger cult. The deaf community, you can travel the world and stay at other people's homes just because you're deaf. So there's an element of trust, and so in that there's a sense of that we are collectively a big cult anyway, but there's definitely a sense of control as well within that.
Do either of you find yourself sympathizing with her and saying, yeah, maybe she's got some ideas there?
I think all cults start with good intentions. I mean, some don't obviously, but a lot of them do. No one starts out to do bad things or to make mistakes. There's always a good intent. So yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to emphasize with Mia, but it's about how far you go.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said earlier people like you don't get to make films very often. So when you are handed this set, you're given this chance to make this film. What do you do differently that you would want to see otherwise, or that no other director other than you would do?
For me personally, I see this. I mean, everyone's calling it a deaf film. I see this as a sign language film, and obviously there's technical aspects to shooting sign language. It's a visual language. It's like dance or combat in some way. In terms of the technical, obviously it's a language in its own right. It has to be translated, and the cast and the director of sign language, a guy called Duffy, had to think about the meaning of all the words that we created, and there's so much work and detail into the sign language in this film, and whilst audiences might not recognize that on the outside, it's there if they want to discover it more. There's so much depth to their performance and the language, and I hope that people, when they see the film, they will see the potential of sign language cinema. It's something I'm very passionate about.
You said it created words for this film. How does that work? What words are new?
Well, obviously, we have BSL, which is British Sign Language. Eva comes to Chilmark with German Sign Language, which is DGS. We used a bit of international, which is it's not really a language in its own right, but it's like it's a mode that people who have different languages can kind of bridge together. But then obviously cults and communities that have their own code speak or their own jargons, and so we created what we call Chilmark dialect or Chilmark signs.
Okay.
And so some signs were created from scratch. I think Sophie could probably tell more about that. You came up with so many good ideas.
Well, there's one sign in the film that is awake, and so it's like an eye, because I'm not wearing that. So yeah, it's awake, but it also symbolises the tattoo that we have, and the tattoo came from big conversation between everybody. So it's a very collaborative thing. It's like a home language. A lot of us come from boarding schools that are deaf schools, and we have a home language, which isn't like official BSL or official language in the world, but we come up with it almost like a private way of communicating when we're not allowed. And so it feels like Chilmark is a space where you are allowed, it's encouraged to freely discover your own way of communicating, and then you form a language together.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Anne, what was that learning curve like? That's a lot of languages for your first international film.
Yeah, I just want to add what you're talking about now, about the influence of language and community, because I'm not native English. I'm from Berlin, I'm German, and so it was quite very interesting because I had to learn BSL and had to look for a way how we communicate. So it's something that not fully understand, but I feel very involved and the work, and it's just beautiful, and I really appreciate that. And the interesting part of this, because Eva, when she arrived in this community, she looked up to Mia, so she started to learn her way how she sign or which sign they use, and this was quite very interesting because it happened to me in English, because I had one situation, I had to send an email in German, and then my brain started thinking in English, and I was like, okay, what I'm doing. So this was like, it was interesting how community or language can influence your personality, your behavior. Yeah.
Hopefully a lot of people are watching this who haven't seen the film yet. Not very many people have seen it at all, including you guys. But for the world of Chilmark, it's, separated from the world. It's making its own language, its own rules. So, Ted, how did you think of this world that's made for people who don't want to use the word deaf, but people who are, creating their own universe? How did you write that and what the world of Chillmark was?
Well, I've been writing this story for more than 10 years, and so it evolved a lot. I guess I just found there was a really, really interesting opportunity to dissect the identity, to pull it apart, and to think about why the way we are, why we behave as a community in a particular way, but also to see what's possible, because as deaf people, as deaf children, we do not get a choice on how we're raised. We don't get a choice on what language we'll learn. Many deaf children don't have the opportunity to sign. Sometimes they're, I've got to choose my words lightly, but they are encouraged to speak, and not everyone can do that, and there's lots of ramifications for that. And I was just so interested in what a community would look like if they had control. If we had control over our own destinies, and perhaps even asking who gets to choose. Nobody gets to choose how their life is mapped out when you're a kid. But there was just so much. This concept just constantly kept giving.
Yeah.
And I got lost down a rabbit hole.
Well, is this conversations you had with the cast as well, where you ask these big questions about why a place like Chillmark would exist, and how did that help everyone build the film together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we cast the film about a few months before, but I had Sophie and Anne and a lot of the actors in the cast are my friends, so I'm always asking questions and always putting ideas, and it was absolutely a very collaborative experience writing film. I had my fantastic producer Jen and Michelle and Alex, and our wonderful financiers. They've been with me for so long, helping to develop this. So it was very much a collaborative, interesting experience.
Sophie, as playing the leader of this group, how did those conversations help you, thinking of those really big picture ideas about why this place might exist? Oh, I'm sorry. When the conversations that you had as actors about the ideas behind Chillmark, how did that help you play this character who had founded the place, and what ideas did it make you have that maybe you hadn't had before? Sorry, does that help?
I think so much of our personal experiences, growing up in boarding school, being isolated, maybe being the only deaf person in a family of hearing people, and not really ever feeling like you belong, that boarding school is the first place that you feel like you are home, and that you are sharing that space with other people without having to explain who you are or why it feels hard sometimes or what you struggle with. None of that exist, and I think the whole point of Chillmark is that none of us are different. We feel different when we're in society, but in this world we're all the same, and we don't have to feel like we are broken or we are deaf. There's a lot of references to we just are, in the same way that hearing people don't say, "Oh, I'm hearing." It's a thing. And Ted often talks about the importance of politics, and us existing is political, and so it's a revolution to say we are in this space together, and we don't have to explain who we are. And I think the power of Chillmark and Mia is that people believe in that, and they can arrive and feel like they've arrived, they're home. They can just be exactly who they are. They can excel. They can reach new levels of belief in themselves because they're letting go of the limitations that the rest of the world had put on us.
Yeah. Your version might have fewer guns, though, if you weren't Mia, maybe no guns.
Yeah.
Ted, can you tell me more about what she means about you talking about politics and feeling political in maybe making this movie or your other work?
Well, I guess I mean, politics, I mean, I guess there's no one right way to be deaf. I mean, it can feel like quite a polarizing experience because, like I was saying, I went to a boarding school for 7 years, and a lot of the inspiration from this story stems from my experience there. We were in a valley, we were in a valley near the sea, far away from the outside world. We go home on weekends, but it felt like we were in a bubble. And like Sophie mentioned before, we were not encouraged to sign. In fact, we were told to stop signing. And I felt I didn't understand anything about human rights as a child, but I instinctively felt like this is wrong. You know, I was trying to talk to a friend of mine who, for whatever reason, didn't speak, and I was being told not to communicate with him. And so I guess the politics in this story stems from this kind of generational anger and rage that many deaf people have in the way society kind of tries to suppress who we are as people.
Well, that's something that, and your character, the anger, is such a big part of her and her growth over the course of that. Was that tapping into something that you had felt as well before, the way Ted's talking about? Oh, just was the sense of anger that your character goes through of kind of tapping into that? Was that a new what was it like to tap into that in the form of your character, that sense of anger about the world? Am I being clear enough? Sorry.
Like oppression?
Yeah.
Oppression.
Yeah. Eva has a big, what's the name? The suitcase.
Baggage.
Yeah.
Baggage.
Baggage. Yeah.
There's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And she's fed up with everything. So it's interesting when we talked about identity labels. So if you imagine you have a lot of labels, just named you that, this, and at the end she don't know who is she. So, and she escaped to Denmark, and she want to find out who is she. So Mia helped her to wash all these labels and to morph or to evolve to a better person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and their philosophy and more free and
Yeah. Ted, you've talked about how people watch more movies with subtitles now. International films, the borders are falling down. And what are your hopes for how your kind of filmmaking, for how deaf actors, deaf language or sign language, anything can spread more the way that people watch movies now?
Well, I hope that people will see this film and our work as a part of world cinema. It's just another language.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're having a bit of a glow up in the UK. There's so many things happening. We have other TV series. We have 2 TV series with deaf actors. Reunion, who's here at TIFF at the moment. Code of Silence, which Rose Eiling-Ellis is involved in. We have amazing work in theatre. So I really hope that whether you're deaf or not, you can see some value in our experiences and how we make films. So yeah, hopefully we're just a part of something that's already amazing and beautiful in world cinema.
Yeah, I love the word glow up. It's everyone gets to have their moment to rise there.
Yeah, everyone. There's another film coming out next year, which sounds incredible. It's an amazing time for our community, and I'm just happy that we're a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for being here, for bringing your movie to Toronto, for these wonderful audiences that await you. And thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you.